Zora's small brown hand trembled as she gripped the blinking device. Through the mansion window, she watched her father, Richard, embrace his blonde fiancée, Veronica. The 8-year-old whispered into her recorder, "Day 43. Found another one under the Bentley. She wants to destroy everything Dad built, including me." Before we dive into this gripping story of betrayal and bravery, let us know where you're watching from. Hit like if you've ever trusted your gut, and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Richard Bennett never planned to be a father at 43. His life was mapped out, build the Northeast's top luxury car dealership, expand globally, and retire by 50. Kids weren't part of the plan until a PR visit to Oak Ridge Community Center changed everything. There, he met a quiet girl, sketching a car engine blueprint, modifications to increase torque while maintaining fuel efficiency. She explained. Zora Matthews, just 7, was brilliant. Her parents were wrongly jailed, and she'd been shuffled through abusive foster homes. 6 months later, after a legal battle, Richard adopted her, but Oak Ridge 97%. White and quietly exclusive, wasn't ready for Zora. Neighbors asked if she was the help. Stores followed her. Party invites stopped. Richard waved it off. They just need time. Mrs. Harrington probably didn't mean anything by asking if you were lost. He missed the pattern, even as he filled one mansion wing with tools, so they could build engines together. He loved her just not enough to see what she was up against. Then came Veronica Caldwell. Tall, blonde, and the daughter of a rival dealership owner, she met Richard at a gala. Within 3 months, she had a ring and a room in the mansion to Richard. She seemed supportive of Zora, but Zora saw the truth: cold stares, hushed phone calls. The little black problem will be gone soon, she overheard one night. So, Zora built a spy, kit recorders, cameras, and lockpicks disguised as hair clips. Her room became mission control, Operation Protect Dad. At school, the story was the same. Her teacher, Ms. Whitman, questioned her perfect scores, hinting she'd had help. When Zora qualified for the gifted program, the teacher pulled her aside. You sure you want to take that spot from someone who might be a better fit? Richard brushed it off again. She probably just wants to be sure you're ready. He never saw the prejudice at home or at school. But Zora did, and she was done staying quiet. The final straw came when Veronica began quietly redecorating, removing the African art Richard had bought to help Zora feel connected to her roots. "These don't match our aesthetic," she told him, replacing vibrant paintings with bland landscapes. When Zora protested, Veronica gently touched Richard's arm. "I'm concerned about Zora's attachment to these items. Shouldn't she be trying to fit into our family?" Instead of defending Zora, Richard nodded. "Maybe we can move them to your room, Zora. Families. Compromise." That night, Zora added another entry to her evidence journal as the wedding neared. She felt like the countdown to her own eviction had begun. Then came proof. One rainy Tuesday, Zora pretended to forget her boots and returned home early. From the fogged poolhouse windows, she saw Veronica on a laptop not hers, snapping photos of Richard's client files. Zora documented everything. 2 days later, Zora's family heritage project became a target. While classmates brought family photos, Zora honored her biological parents and adoptive father, tying her biological dad's work as an engineer to her love of cars. But when she arrived at school, her project had been vandalized. "Go back to where you belong," scrawled across her photos, her cultural artifacts dumped in the trash. Ms. Whitman barely reacted. "Perhaps your project was too provocative," she sighed. Richard, too, dismissed it. "Kids can be cruel. Don't take it personally." He glanced at Veronica. "Remember how Bobby teased you about your braces?" "Exactly," Veronica added sweetly. "It's not about race, Zora. You're just being sensitive." That night, Zora overheard Veronica in the garden. The Heritage Project is handled. I spoke to Whitman. We can't let the child think she's entitled to special recognition just for being black. Zora's fears were confirmed. Veronica had influence at her school and was working to erase her identity. The next week, Veronica began taking an unusual interest in the high-end cars Richard brought home for inspection. One night, after Richard left on a late call, Zora saw Veronica in the garage, photographing engines and documents. Then she attached something to the undercarriage of her Bentley, the one Richard had gifted her. Heart racing, Zora waited for her to leave, then inspected the car. A blinking black device was magnetically attached beneath it, a tracker dot. At breakfast the next morning, Zora tried to warn her father. I found something weird under your car. Looked like a tracking device. Richard didn't look up. Probably from the security company. Veronica didn't flinch. With cars this valuable, extra monitoring is standard. And Zora, it's not proper for young ladies to crawl under vehicles. That afternoon, Richard shared big news. We're expanding into Japan and Singapore, 5 exclusive models. The auction in 2 weeks is everything. Veronica congratulated him with a kiss, but her cold eyes told Zora everything. Later, Zora overheard another call. The expansion announcement happens at the auction. That gives us 2 weeks. The deals will be signed that night. Veronica was planning something. That evening, she entered Zora's room with fresh towels. This room could use an update, she said, eyeing Zora's bookshelf, full of books on black inventors. All these ethnic items. Maybe something more normal. The message was clear. Zora's identity didn't belong. Then Zora saw it. Veronica had taken her evidence journal. Now the enemy knew she was being watched. Zora began rebuilding, creating a new surveillance plan and hiding her notes inside a hollowed-out engineering textbook. Monday morning calls from the East Garden. Wednesday absences. Friday night laptop sessions in the guest house. When she tried to explain the danger to the school counselor, Mrs. Powell smiled sadly. It's normal for adopted children to feel threatened by step-parents. These scenarios you're just your anxiety. Evidence was dismissed. Again, so Zora stopped seeking help from adults and started looking for allies elsewhere. Zora found her first ally in Jasmine Carter, the longtime housekeeper who had worked for Richard for over a decade. That woman isn't right, Jasmine warned one afternoon in the laundry room, their unofficial meeting spot. The way she looks at you when Mr. Bennett isn't watching gives me chills. Jasmine began helping distracting Veronica during investigations, warning Zora about room searches, and sharing advice. Trust your instincts, she said. Richard doesn't see what we do. He's not a bad man, just blind. Privilege is like walking around with earplugs. With Jasmine's help, Zora accessed Richard's office computer while he and Veronica attended a gala. What she found shocked her: canceled client accounts, offshore transfers, and massive financial leaks. Someone was bleeding the business dry. The following Tuesday, she launched the next phase, surveillance. Using a school project as cover, she asked Richard to drop her at the public library just blocks from Caldwell Classic Motors. From a nearby cafe, Zora watched as Veronica's red convertible arrived. 15 minutes later, Thornton Caldwell showed up. Zora snapped photos of them embracing before slipping closer to an open window with her recorder. The tracking data gives us everything, Veronica said. Bennett has no idea what's coming, Thornton replied. Once the business fails and the adoption irregularities surface, the child goes back into the system. A man like Richard has no business raising a black child or expanding into our market, he added coldly. Zora's hands trembled. This wasn't just sabotage. It was personal. It was about erasing her. That night, she found a second tracking device, this time on Richard's phone case. When she showed him, Veronica jumped in. I'm worried about Zora, she said sweetly. First, the car, now this. Maybe she's acting out. Richard frowned. Sweetheart, are you feeling okay? I'm not making this up, Zora cried. She and her father are planning to destroy your business. I heard them. Veronica chimed in. Calm as ever. Sometimes children create drama when they feel insecure. My friend's daughter started setting fires when her mom remarried. Richard's concern shifted into something heavier. Zora, maybe we should talk to someone, a professional. Her heart dropped. He didn't believe her. Zora overheard Veronica on the phone in the study. It's working perfectly. I've suggested a strict boarding school in Vermont, exclusive and discreet. Richard's starting to realize her behavior isn't normal. Panicked, Zora tried accessing Veronica's laptop while she showered, but it was password protected. She needed undeniable proof, something even Richard couldn't ignore. But time was running out. The auction was 10 days away, and Veronica was steadily turning Richard against her. Will Zora find the truth in time? Subscribe and hit the bell to follow this gripping tale of betrayal, racism, and courage. The next morning, Zora woke to voices from Richard's study. Creeping closer, she heard Veronica saying, "These adoption papers raise concerns. David might have cut corners. If this gets out, it could damage the business or worse, send Zora back into the system." Richard sounded uncertain, but didn't argue. Later that day, Richard received 3 back-to-back phone calls. His expression darkened. That's the 3rd client this week. Abdullah canceled 4 orders, claimed quality concerns. Veronica placed a hand over his. How strange. Maybe your reputation's slipping. Zora stayed silent, adding it to her growing list of evidence. At school, the attacks continued. After acing a math test, Ms. Whitman kept her after class. Your answers match Jason's. That's suspicious. Because math has one correct answer, Zora replied calmly. I finished before he did. Still, Whitman called Richard. That evening, Richard stormed into the kitchen. Ms. Whitman says you cheated. Why is it always about race with you? Because she treats me differently, like I don't belong. He slammed the counter. Stop using race as an excuse. Zora flinched as he walked out. Veronica lingered behind, smiling faintly. He's under stress. Maybe you'd be happier if you didn't always remind people how different you are. That night, while Richard worked late, Zora searched the garage again and made a terrifying discovery. A 3rd tracker was hidden on his prized McLaren, the one he planned to drive to the auction. But this one was different, wired into the car's electronics. It wasn't just tracking it, could interfere. The next morning, Zora noticed a shift. Veronica was now screening Richard's calls, urging him to distance himself from friends who had supported Zora's adoption. Jeffrey only supported you taking in a child because it made for good PR, she whispered. The noose was tightening, but Zora wasn't done fighting. That child was just for publicity, Veronica told Richard over breakfast. Your friends don't have your best interests at heart. One by one, Richard's support system vanished. Veronica now controlled more than just his schedule. She had aggressively redecorated, removing family photos with Zora and replacing them with stylized portraits of just herself and Richard. The African art pieces vanished too. When Zora asked about them, Richard accused her of misplacing them. But the real shock came when Zora, reviewing photos on her tablet, found pictures she hadn't taken, images of herself, walking to school, reading in the library, standing in the backyard. She was being watched. The timestamps matched the days Thornton Caldwell's black sedan had been spotted nearby. The pressure spiked when Veronica proposed moving the wedding up to the weekend after the auction. With all the business stress, we need good news, she said sweetly. Richard, distracted by client cancellations, agreed. That night, Zora made one final attempt. She showed her father the photos, recordings, and evidence of Veronica's betrayal. Please, Dad, just look. She's working with her father to destroy your business. Richard looked for a moment until Veronica walked in. Still chasing conspiracies. Zora, Richard snapped. Enough. Go to your room. We'll talk about your punishment later. As Zora fled, she heard Veronica say calmly, "Some children just can't accept change. Maybe it's time we revisited that boarding school idea." The next morning, Richard received notice of a federal audit. "This makes no sense," he muttered. "We passed our last review." Veronica remained calm but gave Zora a cold, triumphant look. Richard spent the next 3 days buried in legal meetings as accounts were frozen and more clients backed out. Meanwhile, Zora kept digging. While Veronica swam, she slipped into the master suite. In a shoebox, she found a master key set, giving her access to Richard's office, file cabinets, and the safe. Veronica had control over everything. As Zora returned the keys, she heard footsteps and ducked under the bed. From there, she overheard Veronica on the phone. "The audit's going perfectly. His accounts are frozen, and the planted evidence will be found tomorrow. He has no idea." Back in her room, Zora discovered it had been ransacked, her journal destroyed, her tablet shattered. A handwritten note lay on her bed. "Accidents happen." Later that afternoon, 2 officers arrived. "We have questions about possible financial crimes at your dealership," one said. Richard was stunned. "That's impossible. I oversee everything." "Business seems to be going well," the other officer said, eyeing the lavish home. "Real good for someone who started with nothing." Zora caught the racial edge in his voice. After they left, Richard locked himself in his study. Veronica on the phone again sounded triumphant. The police were perfect timing. He's rattled. With the auction just 3 days away, Zora knew she had to act. The next morning, when Richard left for a meeting, she faked being sick and convinced Jasmine to let her stay home. As soon as Veronica left for her weekly spa visit, Zora turned to Jasmine. "Cover for me. I'll be back before anyone notices." It was time for her most dangerous mission yet. "This is our only chance to save Dad's business," Zora told Jasmine. The housekeeper looked worried but nodded. "Be careful, baby girl. These people are dangerous." Using Jasmine's spare key, Zora drove to Caldwell Classic Motors. Small and unnoticed, she slipped in through a service entrance and hid behind a decorative screen in Thornton Caldwell's office. "The plan's going perfectly," Thornton said. "The audit froze his accounts. The planted evidence will surface soon. By auction night, Bennett Luxury will be crumbling." "And Richard?" Veronica asked, seated like royalty. "The brake tampering on his McLaren will ensure he never arrives." A tragic accident. Perfect irony. And the girl? Once Richard's gone, she'll be dumped back into the system. No one will believe a troubled black foster kid. "Good," Veronica said coldly. "I'm tired of pretending to care about her." Zora, recording from her teddy bear backpack, accidentally knocked over a figurine. "Check behind the screen," Thornton barked. Zora bolted, weaving through the shop. Just as she reached the exit, Veronica grabbed her backpack and yanked. "You little spy," she hissed, snatching the recording device. Zora escaped, running through traffic and across a shopping center. After a long walk and a bus ride, she returned home, just as Richard and Veronica pulled into the driveway. From the garden, she heard Veronica's voice through the window. "She broke into my father's office, caught on security cameras." "That's impossible," Richard said. "She's been sick at home." "Then where is she now?" Zora slipped inside through the kitchen, where Jasmine was waiting. "They know?" she whispered. "Go upstairs." "I'll handle it," Jasmine said. When Richard stormed in, demanding answers, Jasmine hesitated, then told the truth. "She left to protect you, sir. She knows something's wrong." Silence. "Then pack your things, Jasmine. You're fired." Zora, hiding nearby, broke down. She'd lost her only and the evidence. That evening, Richard summoned her. "You're going to stay with my cousin Margaret in Vermont," he said flatly. "A school for children with special needs. You'll leave tomorrow." "Dad, please, Veronica's going to kill you. They've tampered with your car." "Enough," he shouted. I'm under federal investigation. My business is collapsing, and you're making wild accusations. Maybe this adoption was a mistake. From the doorway, Veronica chimed in. It's not your fault, Richard. Some children just don't fit. Perhaps she'd be happier with a family more like her. Richard didn't argue. Zora returned to her room. From the window, she saw Jasmine loading her car. Acting on instinct, Zora grabbed her emergency backpack and climbed down the trellis. Take me with you, she begged Jasmine. They've sabotaged Dad's car. He's in danger. Jasmine hesitated, then opened the door. Get in. Stay low. At Jasmine's apartment, Zora told her everything. They're planning to kill him. Before the auction, they've also rigged it to look like Dad's laundering money, Zora said. Jasmine's face darkened. I knew she was dangerous, but we need to go to the police. They won't believe us, Zora replied. Thornton's already paid people off. He said I'd be placed somewhere restrictive after Dad's gone. Jasmine was quiet, then stood. I've worked for your father for 12 years. He changed after you came into his life. That woman blinded him, but I know who he really is. From a hidden closet drawer, Jasmine pulled out a flash drive. I've been collecting my own evidence. Recordings, messages, photos wealthy folks teach you to protect yourself. Zora stared in awe. You've been watching her too. Women like her set off alarms. I've dealt with racism all my life. You start recognizing predators. They compared their findings and discovered a disturbing pattern. Caldwell Classic Motors had a history of destroying minority-owned competitors through audits and planted evidence. Rodriguez Imports, Thompson Autos, Jasmine pointed out. And now us, Zora whispered. Dad's adoption of me made him a target. They formed a plan. Jasmine's niece, a tech expert, would help secure their files. Zora would build a timeline that even Richard couldn't ignore. The next morning they snuck into the mansion. In just 24 hours, Veronica had erased all traces of Zora. Her room was packed up, her photos gone. In Richard's study, they found something worse. Changes to his will, making Veronica the sole beneficiary, and documents giving her control over Zora in case of Richard's incapacitation. Then they heard heels clicking on the marble floor. Veronica was back, hiding. They listened as she spoke on the phone. The girl will be gone by tomorrow. Richard apologized for her behavior. Men are so easy to control when they're in love. But Veronica noticed Jasmine's purse by the desk. Someone's here, she said sharply, and threw open the closet door. Her smile vanished. You again? We know what you're planning, Jasmine said, standing between her and Zora. And we have proof. Veronica laughed. Who will believe a fired maid and a troubled black child? You don't belong in this world. She threatened to call the police, forcing them to leave, but as they retreated, Zora turned back. I won't let you hurt my dad. Her voice was like poison. It was over before it began, little girl. Back at the apartment, they regrouped. We need more than this, Jasmine said. Proof they sabotaged the McLaren, Zora added. And something that makes Dad, finally, listen. They worked through the night. Jasmine's niece helped encrypt their files and set up automatic backups. They installed cameras, tracking devices, and audio feed. Zora's final stand. The next morning, auction day, dawned bright. Zora and Jasmine snuck into the garage during Richard's off-site meetings. The McLaren gleamed under showroom lights. Check. The brakes, Jasmine said, sliding underneath. Zora hooked her tablet to the diagnostics port. Her jaw dropped. They installed a remote kill switch for the brakes. And there's a slow leak, Jasmine confirmed. After 30 minutes, he won't be able to stop. They documented everything, photos, videos, and removed the sabotage. They had just finished when a car pulled into the driveway. Hide, Jasmine whispered. Zora and Jasmine barely hid behind a cabinet when Richard entered the garage, Veronica close behind. Let the chauffeur drive, she coaxed. No, Richard said, running a hand over the McLaren. This car represents everything I've built. I'll arrive on my terms." Once they left, Jasmine whispered, "We've stopped the immediate danger, but we still need to expose them publicly, with witnesses they can't control." They set up hidden cameras, one in the garage, one in Richard's study, and kept one with them. As they left, Richard spotted them. "Zora, Jasmine, you're not supposed to be here," he said, seeing her diagnostic app open. "Were you messing with my car, Dad? Someone sabotaged it," Zora pleaded, but Richard exploded. "Enough. I gave you a home, and this is how you repay me. Maybe this adoption was a mistake." Veronica stepped in, calm but cold. "This proves she needs professional help. Margaret will be here in 3 hours." In the car, Zora sobbed. "He's going to die thinking I was just a problem." Jasmine hugged her. "Not if we stop them. We've got nothing left to lose." They moved to their final plan. Jasmine's cousin, a caterer, got Zora a junior server uniform. Jasmine would monitor the feeds from the parking lot. They also tracked Veronica's car and saw her visit a shady document forgery business. "She's creating fake evidence too. Frame your dad." Jasmine realized the auction was at 7 p.m. Richard's big signing moment would be at 9 right when Thornton planned to strike. Zora wasn't sure all the car sabotage had been caught. Even worse, they discovered a news article about a competitor who died in a car crash after adopting his nieces. Thornton had opposed that adoption too. "This isn't about business," Zora whispered. "He targets people who challenge his order. Dad was a target the day he adopted me. At the auction, Zora blended in with the servers, earpiece in. "Veronica's meeting Thornton now," Jasmine said. "And your teacher, Miss Whitman, is with them. She's part of it." At 7:30, Thornton arrived with 2 federal agents. "They've locked the exits," Jasmine warned. Zora spotted Richard, explaining a luxury car to a Saudi prince, confident and passionate, the father she remembered. "They're moving early," Jasmine said. "The agents are closing in." There was no time left. Zora dropped her tray and ran through the crowd. "Dad!" she shouted. Richard turned, his expression tightening as he saw her running toward him. "What are you doing here? Where's Margaret?" Richard asked, stunned. Before Zora could reply, Veronica appeared, gripping his arm. "This is exactly the behavior we discussed," she said smoothly. Zora held out her tablet. "They're framing you for fraud. They tampered with your it's all here." Richard's face hardened. "Enough, Zora. This is the most important night of my career. I won't let you ruin it with wild accusations." A crowd gathered. Thornton Caldwell stepped forward, playing the concerned ally. "Everything okay, Richard? Should we call security?" With federal agents approaching, Zora turned to the crowd. "Thornton and Veronica Caldwell framed my father and tried to kill him. I have proof," the crowd murmured, some laughing. "Poor girl," one said. "This is why adoption outside your culture is a mistake," muttered another dot. Veronica snatched the tablet from Zora's hands. "Security, remove this child." As the guards began escorting Zora away, federal agents reached Richard. "Mr. Bennett, we need to speak with you about financial irregularities." Richard looked stricken. Zora had been right, but it was too late. Suddenly, the ballroom doors burst open. Jasmine rushed in, waving a laptop. "Stop. You need to see this." Behind her came uniformed state police, not Thornton's usual allies. "Mr. Caldwell, we have questions about corporate sabotage and attempted murder," one officer said. Chaos erupted. Zora broke free and ran to Jasmine. "How?" she whispered. "The cameras," Jasmine said. "They've been live streaming everything. I sent the footage to state police." On screen, the crowd watched Thornton and Veronica plotting sabotaging the McLaren, planting financial evidence. The federal agents turned from Richard to the Caldwells. "We've been misled," one muttered. Thornton blustered. "You'll believe a fired maid and a troubled girl over respected business owners. But Veronica panicked and ran only to be stopped by state police. Her purse held Zora's tablet. "Dad," Zora cried, reaching Richard. He looked at her, stunned. "You were right. About everything." Thornton grabbed the mic, desperate. "This is a smear campaign. Bennett's business failed because of his poor judgment, starting with adopting that girl." Gasps rippled through the room. "Are you saying you targeted him because he adopted a black child?" someone demanded. Thornton didn't hold back. Of course it mattered. He disrupted the natural order of our community. A state officer stepped forward. "Mr. Caldwell, you've just confessed to racially motivated sabotage. I suggest you stop talking." Thornton was led away in handcuffs. Richard, shaken, looked at Zora. "I didn't want to believe people could be that cruel, because of you. Because you chose me," she finished softly. The evidence was now undeniable. Footage, files, and recordings showed everything: sabotage, fraud, and racist intent. The state police linked Thornton to other mysterious accidents, including the fatal crash of Martin Williams, who had also adopted children of color, as arrests continued and the truth unraveled. Richard finally saw the world Zora had been fighting alone until now. By the end of that night, Thornton and Veronica were in custody, and Richard's reputation began to recover. But the most important change was within Richard himself. For the first time, he was forced to truly confront the racism Zora had endured since her adoption, something he had long denied in his belief that the world was fair. In the weeks that followed, the Caldwell conspiracy unraveled. The state investigation uncovered a decade of sabotage and intimidation, targeting minority business owners or anyone supporting diversity. Richard's adoption of Zora had made him a double target. The fraud allegations were proven false, the federal case dropped, and Richard's business was restored. His international deal was signed later quietly at the dealership. But for Zora, the real victory was at home. Richard had changed. One evening in the workshop, he said, "I failed you. I thought the world would see you as I do, brilliant, full of potential, but I ignored what you were really going through." Zora responded gently, "You didn't mean to hurt me. You just didn't know because you never had to live it." The fallout exposed more truth. Ms. Whitman was suspended after evidence showed she had secretly worked with the Caldwells to undermine Zora. The school principal issued a public apology and promised reforms to tackle implicit bias. Jasmine was rehired and promoted. "I was wrong to fire you," Richard told her. "Thank you for standing by my daughter when I didn't." The mansion changed too. Art pieces Veronica had removed were replaced with ones Zora chose. Photos of just Richard and Zora once again filled the halls. Most meaningfully, Richard committed to learning reading books Zora recommended and joining conversations about transracial adoption at a support group. Richard summed it up, "I thought love would be enough. But it's not. Love without understanding can still cause harm. Now, I'm learning to do better." By the end of the auction night, Thornton and Veronica Caldwell were in custody, and Richard's name began to clear. But the most profound shift wasn't legal, it was personal. For the first time, Richard confronted the racism Zora had endured, which he had long denied in his belief that love alone could protect her. As the investigation unfolded, more victims came forward. Martin Williams's children testified how Thornton tried to block their adoption. Former employees of Caldwell Motors described a culture that penalized sales to minorities. The most damning evidence linked Thornton to a suspicious crash that killed the original owners of what became Bennett Luxury Automobiles. "He didn't just target you because of me," Zora realized. "He targeted you because you succeeded where he said you shouldn't." 6 months later, Richard launched the Bennett Foundation for Automotive Excellence, supporting minority students and offering legal aid in adoption discrimination cases. "This is just the beginning," he told Zora. "We can't fix everything, but we can build something better." At home, their bond deepened. Richard now truly listened to Zora's experiences and became her advocate. Zora, in turn, thrived under his support. Her spy gear was replaced with dreams of investigative journalism. Thornton and Veronica were convicted of fraud, sabotage, and attempted murder, thanks in large part to the evidence Zora and Jasmine collected. At the sentencing, Richard said, "You didn't just attack my business, you attacked my family, and your failure to understand the beauty of what we built together is your greatest punishment." Outside the courthouse, a reporter asked how justice felt. "Justice begins with truth," Richard replied. "My daughter taught me that." Driving home, Zora asked softly, "Do you regret adopting me?" Richard turned to her. "Zora Bennett, you're the best decision I ever made. My only regret is that it took me this long to see the world through your eyes. But I see no end. I always will." They stepped into a home forever changed by love, justice, and the courage to face hard truths. Understanding the challenges of transracial families is key to building real connection. Have you ever known the truth, but no one believed you? What finally changed their minds? Share your story in the comments. If you were rooting for Zora in her fight for justice, like this video and subscribe for more powerful stories about courage and discrimination. Did this make you see bias differently? How? It hides behind politeness and power. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. You could help them feel seen. Thanks for joining us on Zora and Richard's journey. Remember, standing up for truth is the first step to real change even if you have to stand alone.